Hi everybody, I am hoping you're tuned in and taking the time to be with me today. This is Judy Wilkins-Smith Live. It's my first live streaming and we've had a couple of glitches as you might expect, especially if you're me who's learning to do some tech, but I'm clearly not tech savvy yet, so lots of patience needed, please. Hi Sapna, nice to see that you are watching. Great to know that it's actually recording. We had a couple of glitches, so on we go. A lot of you have been asking me what kind of scars can what I call fear DNA leave behind. Hi Shanae, nice to see you too. And Cara, all thank you all very much for being here. So what scars can fear DNA leave behind? Now, when we talk about fear DNA, it's really important for you to understand I'm known as the emotional DNA person. I teach this around the world. And people ask me, so what is emotional DNA? Emotional DNA, we inherit as much as we inherit our physical DNA. And it is as profound and important as our physical DNA because it covers and colors all the ways in which we will or won't, can or can't succeed. So emotional DNA itself is the thought patterns, the things you're teaching yourself, the things that you're thinking, feeling, your actions. So that accumulation, thinking, feeling, actions, that becomes a pattern. The pattern becomes a mindset, and the mindset becomes the way that things are for you, which then becomes the truth. Only it's not the truth, it's your truth. And the most important thing is you can change that anytime you want to. And so that's what we're going to talk about a bit today. As I said to you before, a lot of people are asking me what something like this pandemic can do in terms of creating emotional DNA. So when we talk about inheriting emotional DNA, we have an event. Boy, are we in the middle of an event. But we have an event that creates a whole lot of thoughts. Oh my goodness, I can't do this. What am I going to do? Life is not good. In this case, I don't have a job. How am I going to feed my children? I'm not capable. See, I thought I wasn't as smart as all that. Now I'm proving it to myself. And as soon as we start to say that, we then take actions that support that. In other words, we sit down and become apathetic, we become scared, we start to engage in activities that we never thought we would do. Who thought you were going to be in line at the food bank, right? And we start to tell ourselves all the don'ts, can'ts, and won'ts, which are really not helpful for us. Then we feel it, and we are thinking, feeling beings. So the more that we feel that, the more it becomes a reality for us. And now we really think this is the truth. So inheriting emotional DNA matters a lot. When we have an event that happens 2 to 3 generations ago, our ancestors are telling themselves what it is that they think and feel and what they're doing with what's happened in the event. What have they made it mean? And what we make it mean is then what becomes, am I capable or am I not? So in our family, for example, we actually had 2 or 3 generations where men have gone out. They have gone out to write insurance, and it can get as interesting as this kind of pattern. Gone out to write insurance, never made it home. So what happened in our family was there began to be a language around you should never go out to write insurance. Do not get into the insurance business. Now, is that the truth? No. But because we've had something happen and it's been passed down and happened again, it feels like or seems like this is the truth. It's not. There is a pattern in the system, and once we resolve that pattern and look at how it can help us, instead of it become a limiting and scary kind of thing, this now becomes a strength for us. And so, of course, we inherit it from events. We inherit it from events, and we inherit it from things that happen to us. So it can either be a multi-generational event like World War II or the Holocaust, where we had all of those survivors and now it echoes down. Or, as we're talking about today, you can have a pandemic. And with this pandemic, we want to ask ourselves, what are we telling ourselves? It is super important, because right now you're not inheriting emotional or fear DNA, you're now creating it. So, and this is important, right? Because you're going to pass this down to your children, to your communities, to your culture. You're going to be known as the culture who could do this, the country who managed to get it together or not get it together. You're going to have children who are capable. You may have children like I do. I have a daughter who is on the front line. Are my children safe? So we begin to ask ourselves these questions. Now, there are other questions that we can also ask ourselves. How am I stronger in this moment? What am I learning in this moment? Am I learning that I can collaborate when I'm asked? Am I learning that I'm fiercely independent and don't want to? Am I learning that I'm a very capable being and I can walk into the middle of danger and take precautions and be safe and move out of the other side of this and be able to tell myself, we made it, we did it, our family was strong. So you can see the implications of this inheritance. Again, what I begin to tell myself is what I begin to recognize as my truth. How am I stronger in the moment? What am I realizing that I may have inherited, again, as emotional DNA? I may have inherited something that I can use now. In my prior generations, how did they react when times were tough? You see things, very, very interesting one for me is the toilet paper run. Who knew that the toilet paper run was actually a pattern? But when I went and researched it, that was one of the things that happened way back in, I think it was 1976, where they also had a thought, and I think it was also sparked by a virus. There was a thought that there wouldn't be enough. So these are some of our meta patterns, right? There won't be enough. This has been a big one here. And all of a sudden, toilet paper is the thing, and everybody's sprinting for the toilet paper. I will confess, I have a good stock of toilet paper. But these are the things that we start to tell ourselves. But I don't have enough toilet paper then becomes I don't have enough, period. And when we start a pattern of I don't have enough, this then echoes through the family, and we suddenly find generations either wanting to hoard or being incredibly fearful, or even when it gets to your money DNA, by the way, these are people who then could make millions, but because that sentence echoes in their family system, they're still telling themselves, I don't have enough, I'm not safe. So we want to be mindful right now during something like this pandemic of exactly what we are telling ourselves. What are we telling ourselves and making it our truth? And again, bear in mind, you teach your brain and your body and your heart what it needs to survive, but also what it needs to thrive. And so we're at an incredible place in time, or an incredible moment in time, where we've got to make a choice. Do I go into survival and shut down? Does my heart close? Because it's not ever that we have a closed mind. It's as soon as the heart closes, we go into the creative part of the brain. The reactive part of the brain. And when we're in the reactive or history part of the brain, now we're in survival. We're not thinking, oh goodness, it's a beautiful day. It's how do I get my next meal? What do I do now? And it shuts down our ability to be creative. On the other hand, when we start to open the heart and know that we're capable and work towards solutions for ourselves, the creative brain switches on. And when the creative brain switches on, now we can think. Now we can make a plan. Now we can create a different destiny for ourselves. So the other thing that's super important to bear in mind is that for 90% of our lives, most of us think we have free choice, where in fact what we're doing is we're living the history of our ancestors. I might be depressed. I might be in this time be depressed, be sad, be scared. Is it mine? Or is this a trigger from an event that happened generations before me that's been passed down in words, in actions, in thoughts and feelings, and now it's triggering in me? And by the way, it can feel very much like it belongs to me, but in fact, come from the family. Why is that important? Because as I said earlier, if you're not creating your own future, you're living in ancient history. And so the other piece that's really important about all of this, and especially in fear DNA, is will I repeat the fear of my ancestors? Or is this a point at time in which I stand tall, in which I come into being, and I choose to give up some of the old fear patterns? I look and go, you know what? It's okay. I am safe right now. I can help others. I can stand up. Or do we go back into the fear of the ancestors, and it is a very strong fear? So something for us also to notice is that if we are reacting disproportionately to what's going on, it is very possible that this is a multi-generational pattern. So how do we begin to create differently? First, instead of listening to our frustrations, which are frequently, by the way, from the ancestors, and they kind of build into this pattern of limitation, what we do is we begin to listen to our heart's desire. In our heart's desire is often the future that's trying to be created through us and through the family system. And once we begin to pay attention to the heart's desire, we then know what is the pattern that's trying to stop. In other words, in this case with fear DNA, what is the pattern of fear that lives in my family system that could stop right now? What is the pattern that's trying to emerge? So how am I stronger, better, happier, kinder, more resilient in a time like this? What am I doing that is different from all of my ancestors? This is the pattern that's trying to emerge. And it's super important because it wants to emerge through you. When it emerges through you and you make a different decision, you're actually rewiring your brain and you're rewiring your heart, head, gut system. You're literally telling yourself, I can do this differently. And we think, I know I have so many people who say, it can't be just thoughts and feelings. It is thoughts, it's feelings, it's sensing. That is a sum total of who we are and how we create. And how we create what we call emotional DNA. And if we're in any doubt, if you watch Holocaust survivor descendants, many of them carry the same fears and the same limitations and the same thoughts, if you want, or thought patterns actually, as their predecessors who were actually the ones who were affected. Until at some point, one of them says, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be this scared anymore. I don't want it to be this way. I'm doing it differently. And by the way, you all do it all the time. You want to look at what is an ambition for me? What is so important to me in this time of fear DNA? What is the most important thing that I want for my children, for my family, and of myself? What do I want to know about me that is going to be different? It's going to equip me from here on in. Life is not going to be the same again. And in fact, I'm going to be a completely new, stronger being. And that begins with, what thoughts and feelings am I going to put into my brain? So when people, or put into my brain and feel in my heart, right? So when people ask me what new thoughts, I'm going to go back to, ask yourself right now, what is the one thing that you notice that you are doing that you haven't done before, that you never thought you'd do before, but it's pretty much a strength, and you could be quite proud of this. I have somebody in my community who's been off from work for 7 weeks going on 8, like many of us, and instead of being afraid and sitting down and really being miserable, what they did was they went to food banks. And they started volunteering at food banks, and they started paying it forward. What they know about themselves is that in time of trouble, I can do this. I have enough. I can help someone else. I am bigger than I thought I was. So if you look at books like Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief, where he says you are bigger than your belief, yes, you are. And that is the most incredible thing about the work that I teach. Once you begin to realize how capable you are and how incredible you are, you're also going to find that you begin to shift from the idea of healing to the idea of also being an incredible amount more. You are so much bigger than the point of view you hold about yourself. So when I teach family patterns, and one for you right now is, I will say to people, let's have a look at the different ones. I teach money DNA, I teach emotional DNA, I teach relationship DNA. And yes, believe it or not, before this even happened, I had already put out there that I was going to teach fear DNA. And I'm teaching it this year at Disney World in Florida, November the 6th through the 9th. And what I'm looking at there is, so what creates our fear DNA? What triggers you in the middle of the night? What is it? Is it money? Is it relationships? Am I not good enough? Am I strong enough? And we look at those things that you tell yourself, and then we begin to look at, where did that come from? What we also look at is, how does it serve? Because here's the thing, even in fear, if you look at your fear DNA, not only where did it come from, what is it giving you? What is it making you do? Some people will say, I can't anymore, I give up. For some of you, you're actually going to say, I won't give up. I'm not quitting. What can I do right now? How do I change this? And so fear serves a very different purpose for you. In this way, fear becomes your ally in a sense, although you really don't want to use fear as your constant motivator. But it serves an incredible purpose for you. And when you use it as purpose and as opportunity instead of limitation, now you're playing a very different game. Now you're beginning to live in a very different way. So in constellations work, which is some of the work I do, systemic work and constellations. In this work, we look at the family system. We look at what has happened, what it has done for me, and how can I move that. We also set this up in 3 dimensions so that you can actually look at what's happening for you, interact with it, see it, experience it, and change in the moment. Why is that important? You can transform in one of 2 ways. Transformation can happen when something terrible happens to you and you go down the tubes. You've transformed. You will hear people say she's no longer the person she used to be. But that same event, if you choose mindfully and differently, can turn you into a superhero you never thought possible. You see this all the time. Somebody becomes a quadriplegic or a paraplegic, and suddenly that's their platform. And it's when we choose to use what's happening to us in the moment of fear as an igniter for our own good that transformation begins to happen. And it is profound. Because when you invest in that, and again, we see this in constellations where it is a process, an intact process that happens within an hour to 2 hours. When you invest in that, what happens for you is that you activate neural networks, and you start to lay down in the moment a very different neural pathway. So you would almost say it is the opposite of a traumatic event. This is an igniting event. This is what defines, you will hear people say, it defined me as a person. I knew in that moment I would be okay. I knew that there was something I could do with this. And you are rewiring that into your brain. So all of a sudden, what was a fear is now becoming an I can do this, a can-do person. It begins to become your purpose. And when your purpose emerges, your purpose is so strong that it'll pull you past all of your excuses. It'll pull you past all of your reasons for not doing things. It'll pull you past the apathy. Now you're engaging with your future. Now you're no longer living your past or your ancestors' past. Now life begins to be super exciting. And so fear DNA and the moment that we're in this pandemic is no different. How right now can you begin transforming your brain? How can you begin opening your heart? What are you saying to yourself? You want to ask yourself all of the time, when I'm afraid, is that my fear? Or is that Great Aunt Agatha's fear? And what do I want to do with that? Trauma gets programmed into us when we agree this is about to take us down. So again, it's about being super mindful in the moment. It's about being aware of what are my thoughts? What are my feelings? And most important, what am I going to make this mean? I don't have a job. I don't know how to put food on the table. See, I'm no good. I don't have a job. I'm not sure how to put food on the table. I'm about to get pretty innovative right now. Let's see what I can do. And so this is how we begin to lay down the neural pathways. Now, in a trauma, you know it's laid down that quickly. And when it lays down that quickly, it lays down complete with triggers, the neural pathway, with triggers, with nuances, with shadows. And so every time there is even a hint of that, up comes the entire incident again. What we don't realize is you can do the same in the opposite direction. So in the opposite direction, I'm in a crunch, something is happening to me. How am I going to make this work for me? And if you invest your feelings and your thoughts and your focus into that, you'll find the gut kicks in too, and instead of tensing, it starts to serve you. And when those three are humming together, now you're in alignment. And not only are you in alignment, this is going to become your new normal. You know, that lovely new normal that we're talking about out there. And so right now, you want to look at the pattern you're creating. Because the pattern you're creating is going to add to your success if you choose that. If you choose to go down, it is a longer road back. But if you choose right now to start seeing what am I capable of? What can I achieve? How is this serving me? How does it fit in with my family system? You're going to see that you begin to walk in a different direction. Now, some of you may already have that resilience encoded into your family system. Some of you may not. If you do, you would strengthen it. If you don't, this is your time in the family system where you are being asked to make the difference and change the emotional DNA that lives in your family system. Change the mental, physical, emotional health, and yes, physical too, because the way that we think absolutely colors our physicality as well. Doctors will tell you this. But your emotional and your mental well-being, you can absolutely change. And I know, I work with legacy families. I work with significant figures, public figures, and they learn with me. The most important thing we could do is understand my family system, understand what I'm inheriting, and understand what I want to create. And this is how they transform. So systemic work and constellations work has traditionally been considered a healing modality. I don't work there. I suppose I do to an extent, but for me, I'm very aware that it's a transformational modality. This allows you to be in charge of creating the life that you want. Using your thoughts, using your feelings, using your senses opens you up to be able to see the opportunities, opens you up to be able to not think of yourself in a certain way, because the minute you limit yourself, your ability to see and to feel and to think narrows down. This opens the mind. Constellations work and systemic work is a highly transformative modality. And this is the way that I use it. When I work with leaders, and by the way, I'm working with a lot of leaders at the moment in this moment of fear. And they all say, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And what we do is we flip to, so where is the patch of blue? Or is there a cloud we can use? And what do we want to create after this, or during and after this? So we begin to move in the direction of possibility. And the minute you do that, you're shifting from what is to what's possible. So with the leaders that I'm working with at the moment, they go into their visionary space. They go into the heart space. Then they go into the head space. They have a look at what has been the tradition in the company. In other words, what is the inheritance of the company or the DNA of the company? And then we look at how do we move it through the fear into something that is going to be a remarkable story. And that's really my invitation to all of you today. This moment of fear, this pandemic, yes, it's bringing up a lot of fear DNA. Aren't we lucky? And the answer to that is, by the way, is we're super lucky. We're lucky. We are in a moment, literally in history, where we get to create not only our future, but the future of many who will come after us. And we want to ask ourselves, as I sit down, what do I want to tell myself about my relationships? What do I want to tell myself about my money? What do I want to tell myself about my career? What do I want to tell myself about who I am? Because what I tell myself now is about to become my truth. What I tell myself now is busy creating my future. If I repeat the family patterns of fear, I am just another generation of the same. But right now, if I choose to do it differently, if I choose to move myself and my family in the direction of capability, resilience, happiness, new decisions and choices about myself, then what you stand to do is exactly the opposite of that traumatic neural pathway. You stand, if you invest in it deeply, you stand to create the igniter. You stand to create a pathway that you're going to be proud of, that is going to serve you, and that is going to bring you success. Something for you to be aware of. I know that when I ask people, are you a glass half empty or a glass half full? Do you tend to think the worst or the best? The outcomes for both are very, very different. If you start to tell yourself more about what you can do, your life is going to turn out very differently from if you continue to tell yourself what you cannot do. And one of the most important things in all of this pandemic, in all of the fear, in everything that's going on, is How can I be happy? Even in the toughest times, what piece of me can I create that will always hold me steady? What piece of me can I pass on to my children? How am I changing myself as an individual? If we look in family patterns, what do I often see with this sort of thing? During the Holocaust, great-grandmother becomes super depressed. Not surprising. She loses great-grandfather, right? 5 generations down, I have somebody who says, you know what, I've been depressed for as long as I can remember. That tells me immediately this may not be that person's pattern. It may have originated from somewhere else. I also have people who will have an insight into the depression and suddenly start to cry. And they cry and they cry and they cry. And eventually they say to me, will I ever stop? And the answer is, you're crying for 4 generations. It may take a while. But at some point, you're the one who gets to change what's happening in the world and in your world. You get to change your truth, not just the truth. And when you change your truth, you begin to change communities around you. You begin to change your own family system. You begin to change you. You will not be the person you started out with. Now, my challenge to each one of you is, yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic. It is what it is. There are all sorts of things that we could say, do, rail against, react to. I'm more interested in what strength are you going to lay down? Let's put down fear DNA. The subject of today was fear DNA. Let's put down fear DNA. What transformational DNA are you going to begin creating today? What are you going to pass on to your children? What are you going to say to yourself about yourself at the end of this pandemic? What extra skill will you have that you had no idea you would ever acquire? How big are you willing to be? Everybody who knows me knows this is one of my favorite things to ask. How big are you willing to be? Are you willing to rise above what you think are your limitations? Are you willing to be the biggest version of yourself possible? Because the minute you say yes, it's the first day of your life that you actually take responsibility for who you are and for growing an incredible life. So I want to pivot to, this is probably one of the most important times in history. We are not at the mercy of a whimsical universe. We are not at the fates of who knows, and people out there are doing it to us. We are very much capable of creating who we want to be, how we want to be, what we want to give, where we want to land or wind up. And yes, it all begins with, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you telling yourself? Oh, and by the way, one really important one that I didn't mention, what are you believing? It's very easy to say, I'm amazing, no. What am I feeling? What am I telling myself that I believe? Because it will become my truth. And as it becomes my truth, it will become truth in the universe. So as I said, we are not at the mercy of a whimsical universe. We are very much in control of who and what we are when we begin to realize it. And if I were to say to you, I would want you to take away one thing with you, one thing today from this, it would be to recognize I can be exactly who I want to be. I am capable of achieving what I want to achieve. And by the way, if you come to an event that I host, if you come to Constellations workshops, you will learn to do exactly that. You will learn to begin creating the life that you want to live. It is yours. You simply have to say yes. You have to say yes to the thoughts, to the feelings, to the actions, and to the work. And you don't get to quit. But life is a bit of an adventure, and adventure isn't always just the ups. There are times when those downs are going to feel difficult. Like now. What am I going to do with those to make sure that when I come out of this the other side, I fly high? And in this work, in systemic work, we teach you how to do that. We teach you the importance of belonging, order, balance of give and receive. We teach you why it's super important not to exclude only events, but people from your system. It's not that it makes you good, bad, or indifferent if you do. It's that those people contain information you need. They contain clues, profound clues, to who you may and will become. And as we begin to decode who we are, and then add to who we want to become, we become mindful creators in our own incredible lives. So now you've heard me speak about fear DNA, which, by the way, is a great igniter for moving you out of your box. Is a great igniter. If you're really in a lot of fear or you're feeling stuck, yay, congratulations. One of my favorite places is when clients tell me I am stuck or I am lost or I am in fear. Because I now know they've outgrown their small box and they're headed to a really big arena. So if you're there, good luck. What can you do to shift that? Well, this is my first live, as you will see, or will have known. And I'm going to be offering more question and answer webinars. There's one on Wednesday at 2 Central. And then I will also be teaching, again, heaven help us all, I'm going to be teaching an online version of my emotional DNA. And in emotional DNA, we're going to look at how do you have the thoughts that you have? Where did those come from? How do they affect you? How do they limit you? How do they strengthen you? What can we do with those? Where are you stuck? What does it mean? What is the system asking you for right now? What is trying to rest? In other words, what pattern is trying to stop that's outdated? And what pattern is trying to emerge and fly through you? And yes, again, highly transformational. This is something that shifts you, and it shifts you quickly, and it shifts you in a lasting manner. And of course, as with all transformational modalities, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. The Emotional DNA workshop is going to be a special this time. I'll be running it on May 29th, 30, 31. So 3 days of learning all about who you are, where you came from, why you are a remarkable life, if only you know how to see it, how to invest in you, and how to take yourself into a completely different level of being and living. And so from the 29th through the 31st, I'll be offering that online. There will be notices that go out to that effect. And because it's our first time online, and because you don't get the interactive part of it, well, you do, but not live, there's going to be a reduction in cost, but it will also count as one of the certification modalities. So this will be the first one where you will also see. We're going to have it set up next to me. You'll see me pointing this way, and I'll be able to interact with you. Wednesday will be a lot of question and answers. So if you have questions that you've asked, I see there's a lot happening in front of me. If you have questions you've asked that I haven't answered, I'll address them then. Please feel free to come and join us. We'd love to see you. And then I want to go back a little bit just to Fear DNA and Fear DNA at Disney World. Why am I doing it at Disney World? People ask me all the time, isn't it a bit commercialized? What do you want to do there? No. I'm taking Fear DNA to Disney World to show you what happens, and boy, Disney is a master at this, what happens when the hero in you starts to kick in. So we're going to look at where is your fear coming from? How does it live uniquely in you? how do we use that to create what you really want, which is the superhero in you, the capable one, the one who can succeed. We're going to look at all of those. And then in the evening, you will see how we play our way into the strength that you're learning. How do you effectively use what you've learned during the day to go and push yourself a little bit during the evening? And the comments that I hear very often after an advanced class at Disney World are, if I'd known about this, I would have done this years ago. Why isn't this more widely known? Can I do the next one? I have people who've done many of them. Mindy, I saw you out there, by the way. Mindy's one of those. Gloria, one of my other ones, who's attended many of my advanced, and they do their work. And the difference, of course, is astounding. So one of the reasons that I've also chosen to do this is I've been asked to do more and more of this and to work with more and more of you so that you can begin transforming yourself. And this is a lot of what this is going to be about. You are quite capable of doing that. Everybody is capable of doing that. I think one of my favorite things to say is transformation isn't for the special chosen few with halos and a spotless record. It is a chosen thing, and any of you could choose it at any time, and anybody can do it. So I think really to wrap up, it's to say to you, we could have looked at just fear DNA today. We could have. And yeah, there are a lot of us with a lot of fears. But there are a lot of us with a lot of strengths. And we're so invested in understanding our fears that we forget that the magic lies in what we're capable of doing. And we're capable of a lot. And I love working with people to show them what they have, how they can use it, and how profound it is once they do. People are remarkable lives when they choose it. So the invitation to you is choose to be a remarkable life in whatever manner that is for you. Whatever it means for you. Choose to be a happy life. Choose success DNA, purpose DNA. Choose to be the best version of you. We did not, contrary to popular belief, we did not come here to suffer and be small. We came here to be the difference and make the difference. And I wish I could speak to you. I wish I could interact with you more. I'm looking forward to doing that on Wednesday. So I can't wait to see a whole bunch of you. But this has been fun for me. I love teaching what I teach. I love working with the people I do. I'm lucky and I'm blessed. I have incredible clients around the world. I work with top leaders and top families around the world. I work with people who teach me every single day. So to say that I receive in spades every day is an understatement. I am very lucky. But I look forward to seeing more of you. I look forward to seeing you on my webinar on Wednesday. Can't wait to share more space with you where you'll be able to actually ask me questions. We'll be doing it via Zoom. And I hope you've enjoyed this afternoon. And I hope more than anything that what you walk away with is understanding that fear DNA is simply a cover-up for strength DNA, which you possess in spades. It's been lovely to share space with you. It's been a lovely time. Take care. Be safe. Be kind. Go create the best version of you. I look forward to seeing you. Goodbye.